Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here to review Goosebumps, House of Shivers, Scariest book ever. Now first off, Safi, the funny thing was that I didn't know if the audiobook for this book would be on Hoopla today, because the book released today and the ebook is on there, but I wasn't sure if the audiobook would be there. And so I was like, Safi, we can either review another Slappy World book or we can wait until the audiobook comes out. And then yesterday I had her read a Slappy World book and I have not read that one yet. But then today I was like, I could get this on Amazon, and I got it on Amazon, but then I looked, and the audiobook was actually on Hoopla. I don't understand, because with the Fright Night book, that audiobook was not on Hoopla for quite some time, and so I thought it would be a similar situation. But anyway, so I just read this book. It is a new book, and The very first observation or question that I would have is, I don't really know if I buy into whatever House of Shivers is, because it's never explained what that means. It's just, it's a gimmicky title, House of Shivers, Goosebumps, House of Shivers, blah blah blah. And I feel like if you're going to have these titles of whatever the series are, have at least a little reasoning for the title. Because Slappy World makes sense. Slappy tells the stories kind of, and then Horrorland, Goosebumps Horrorland, those books make sense because I believe they take place in Horrorland. The Goosebumps 2000, didn't those start off in the 2000s? So this is a title that doesn't make sense. House of Shivers. I don't know what that means. It's a cool title. I mean, the cover is fine. It's creative and colorful and fun. They're actually, I think, it's better than the Slappy World covers for the most part. It's a lot more fun, and it's a lot more fantastical, which fits the theme. I mean, fits the book, not the theme of the book, because the book itself, it's hard to really gauge how I feel about this book, because it's really fantastical and silly, and It's like Goosebumps, but I don't know. It's like, how you have cartoons that are the cartoon adaptations of movies. You have Back to the Future, the movie, and then you have the Back to the Future cartoon series. That's kind of what this is to me. This is Goosebumps, the cartoon version. It's very, very over the top. It's very, very cartoonish and just silly and kind of yeah, okay. And there are some great parts of the book. I mean, I did enjoy it, and that was the weird thing, though, is that I kind of enjoyed it, but I kind of didn't. There was a part of me that thought, This is fun. It's fun, kinda, but then there's another part of me, probably the cynical part that, has been reviewing stuff for a long time, that is just was that really very good? It's on one hand, there's some fun parts, and it's kind of fun overall, I guess. I mean, another thing is, I don't know if kids will like this book, because although it is aimed towards children, I mean, you can tell, although it is aimed towards them, there's a certain point in the book where it gets really repetitive and kind of confusing, like especially if you're a kid, kind of confusing and all over the place. And I feel like kids would like switch off and they'd be like, this isn't really interesting anymore, so I'm going to turn it off. Or should I say, shut the book. And, there are a couple of elements of the audiobook that kind of impacted the experience. Like, instead of the music from Slappy World, where they're like, dun, 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 which was like, basically saying that the kids are fucked. That's what that music was. Well, now there's like this weird, like, modern-y type of, like, techno music, like, and it's really strange. It doesn't fit the book at all. I mean, it doesn't fit Goosebumps in any way, shape, or form. It feels like an adventure music for like a video game or something. And then, so the book, let's get to the plot. The book is all about these kids who go to stay with their uncle for a few days while their parents are in England. And right off the bat, you have a flaw. They're in the middle of nowhere. It reminds me a lot of How to Kill a Monster, because it's exactly like it. They're in the middle of nowhere in like this foresty area, kind of like a swamp area, in a way. And the parents just drop their kids off. They don't even bother to make sure that the uncle is home. That was flaw number one. And he's home, I guess, and right off the bat with the audiobook, it was like, "Hey guys, I'm Uncle Wendell." It was really hilarious, like the guy who read this audiobook, because he was like, "I'm Uncle Wendell, and I'm gonna do this fake voice for the whole book. We gotta find the book, guys. There's a book that's missing, and it's in the scary forest. I'm Uncle Wendell." It hurts to do that. I don't know how the guy did it for 2 hours. 2 hours and 40 minutes. FML. So there's the scariest book ever that's missing. And, there are a couple of questions with that, which is like, so what if it's scary? What's that going to do? Like, it sort of feels, too, like, you could say, like, subconsciously, it's almost like R.L. Stine kind of, like, having, like, a sad crisis over the fact that, like, the books that he writes now, they're really not as good as the old Goosebumps books, and he feels like, the scariest book ever, he has to protect the children from reading that. He can't write, like, Welcome to Dead House again. He has to write these kind of childish, goofy books like this. And it's you can look at it that way and kind of be like, oh, that's interesting, but kind of, that's just speculation, because there are some small parts of the book where I guess he tries to push the boundaries a little tiny bit, but the whole tone of the book was really all over the place, where some parts were really, really visceral, I guess, with the descriptions of these creatures and things that happened in this forest. But then on the other hand, there's all these like goofy, silly parts that just completely take all of the horror out of it and all of the suspense. So another red flag is the uncle says, "I'm gonna catch the thief of the scariest book ever written, and I'm gonna imprison him in my dungeon." That's another red flag. Like, what? You're not gonna turn him into the police? You're gonna... I mean, he literally shows the kids his dungeon, and he says, "I'm gonna tie him up here, and I'm gonna sexually torture him. I'm gonna force him to read the Slappy World books on repeat." And that's another red flag. And then he's like, and here's another red flag. Or, I mean, I guess I should say flaw. Here's another flaw. He asks his fucking niece and nephew to come into the Wayward Forest with him. This dangerous place where people can die. There's cannibal crows and there's worms and stuff and there's lots of scary stuff. And the uncle literally says, like, you guys come into the forest with me to find the book. It's the scariest book ever written. And that's another thing. Take a shot every time they say the scariest book ever. Because you're going to be dead by the time you do that. By the end of the book. And the kids agree to it. I don't know what they were thinking with this. Like, it's one hand the How to Kill a Monster where the uncle and aunt disappear and then the kids let out the monster and, you know, the uncle and aunt warn them the whole time. But it's another thing for this book where the uncle takes them into this forest, this dangerous forest. And the fun parts, I guess, are these sequences where they encounter all of these creatures in the forest and they're kind of, you know, maneuvering their way through the forest. You know, that's kind of fun, I guess. It also reminded me of what How to Kill a Monster Part 2 should have been. Because if you remember at the end of the first book, you know, the kids get that note and they finally read it. And it says the monster's in that one room. And also, don't even try to go outside because there's a lot more monsters out there. And, you know, if they made a sequel, it would have been this book, kinda, where the kids maneuver this area where there's a bunch of monsters. So then, like, they come across these cannibal crows, and see, this is what I mean by goofy. These cannibal crows, like, they're like, ooh, we're really scary, and then they just eat each other. And it's just so anticlimactic and funny. And then one of the stupid lines of the book was, is there such a thing as quicksand? I don't think that children are that dumb, R.L. Stine. I don't think that they're that stupid. Is there such a thing as quicksand? Wow. And then, of course, and this is all going to be spoilers too, so if you just want to know my grade, it's complicated. Like, you really wouldn't be able to make a decision about whether or not you should get this book based on my grade, because I don't even know what I can grade it, like, because I'm so, like, back and forth about it. On one hand, it feels like another Slappy World story where the Slappy narration is taken out of it. But on the other hand, there's some fun parts of it, I guess. I mean, I don't think I'd ever read it again, honestly, but then again, like, you know, who knows? So then they go to the shed that they're not supposed to go to. They open it up, and then there's the real Uncle Wendell inside there, and they do this kind of stay out of the basement bullshit where you have the real uncle and the fake uncle. And then it turns out that the first uncle was this bad guy called the Bookworm, which just made me cringe. Like, I thought the villain of this book is the Bookworm. Oh, God. Why? Why? He's not even a worm. He's a guy. He's just nicknamed the Bookworm. Like, that's really weird. But then what happens is, you know, they have this kerfuffle where the Bookworm tries to get the book, and then, you know, there's some confusion and they break away. And then they go to this cave with cave locusts, and as I said, there are some visceral moments, like where these locusts eat these worms, and that was really cool and gross and fun. And then they actually they were in like this pile of worms. That was really gross too. So as I said, there were moments like that. There were little tiny moments like that where I thought, ooh, this book could have been really good if it were just not this goofy plot about getting this book and protecting it. Because honestly, I feel like this is a case where R.L. Stine's title came back to bite him, because I think that there could have been a much better story with this title, Scariest Book Ever. I think that the title for this book is totally mismatched, because if I wrote that book, then I would want, if I wanted to read the book, I would have wanted it to be about the book and not about like a forest and people wanting to steal the book. But maybe they'll do a sequel where we see what's inside the book or something. I don't know. But then it turns out, after the uncle tries to steal the book in the cave, the kids go run away. And there's a third uncle. And he said, well, I was locked in the attic. Stupid kids. That second uncle is actually the collector. And it's like, oh, God. He did a double stay out of the basement, like rip off. And that's not bad enough. They literally rip off stay out of the basement near the end of this book. They do the same thing. It's like, why would you do this? Like, this is not good. That's when the book got really bad. Like, that's when the book went from being okay to being really bad. The Uncle 2 and Uncle 3 are like at a face-off. And they're like, oh, well, the way that we'll be able to tell who the real uncle is that the real uncle has to guess or has to say what is Betty's real name. Because the main characters are these brother and sister. You have Betty, and then you have the main kid, Billy, I can't remember. And Betty's real name is Bethany. And so it's literally the same thing from Stay Out of the Basement, where they're like, what was the nickname that you called me? And then, of course, the real dad says that, I called you princess or something, and that's how they're able to tell that the dads are... That one is a copy and one's the real one, who the real one is. It's all the same thing in this book. So that was really dumb. And then the collector guy knocks out the third uncle, and they're gonna go home, and I guess he's gonna... He doesn't even say what he's gonna do to the kids. Like, I know that, like, R.L. Stine says, like, he won't kill people in Goosebumps, but honestly, he couldn't just have him say that he's gonna kill the kids, like, because, I guess that's what he was gonna do. But then there was this foreshadowing at the beginning of the book, and I should have guessed this was what would have happened, because there were these tree bears. I don't know where that idea came from. There was one tree bear head in the house, and so that was kind of foreshadowing that they would save the day and be like a Deus Ex Machina characters, because these tree bears come out and they attack the collector or whatever, and then they get the book and they get with the real uncle, and the book ends there with this weird ending. Or actually, yeah. The ending is even worse, because they jump forward. Like, so he had to speed up again, just like in the Slappy World books. And so he jumps forward, and the kids are at home. They haven't told their parents at all what they went through and what their uncle accidentally put them through. And then the stupid ending, which is very predictable, is that the reason why he jumped forward was so that he wouldn't have to tell what happened until you learn it in the twist. And the twist is that the uncle, who's just he's a very protective and amazing uncle, he put the scariest book ever in their backpacks or whatever. So now they have to protect it and keep it with them. And if that's not stupid enough, because he's just put them in danger now, the kids, after all this whole book, like after this whole book going through all this trouble, the kids are like, "What's in the book? Let's open it up." You know what I did there? I face palmed myself. I was like, oh. Because, I mean, really? Really? So, yeah, this was kind of a disappointing beginning to this House of Shivers series. In terms of, I don't know, like, what they're going for with, like, the House of Shivers name. Like, I don't know what that means. If they're intending, because what I thought when I read this book was, it reminds me of children's cereal. Like, it reminds me of, like, those goofy, like, Frankenberry, Boo Berry, Count Chocula. It reminds me of, like, eating those children's cereals. Like, that's all I could think about. Like, it's just kind of... It's not Goosebumps, really. It's just kind of like goofy, fantastical. Yeah. So, I would give this book... I would have given this book a C+ if you didn't have the ripping off stuff with Stay Out of the Basement. I mean, just blatant copying. And he's copying himself, which is, I guess it's better, but it's like, you don't think that anyone's going to pick that up? Like, that was bad. And, yeah, that was bad. And I wanted more of, like, the story of them being in the scary forest and having to maneuver it, instead of being about, there's 3 uncles. And 2 of them are thieves, and they want to steal this book. It's like, who cares? Like, I don't care. Like, what's the book gonna do? Like, seriously, what is the book gonna do? Like, they don't even say what the book is gonna do. And another thing is, you could say it's also kind of copying the Goosebumps movie, because that was like the same thing with the movie, where it's all about the book. And these books are bad and evil, and monsters come out of them, and so we have to put them back in the books and whatever. And that's what this was like as well. So I would have given this book a C+, but with the ripping off of Stay Out of the Basement stuff near the end, I have to give this book a D+. Unfortunately, because I did think that there were some enjoyable parts, and I don't think it's bad. Like, I just think that it's okay with some really bad moments like those, like what I just mentioned. The whole thing with what's Betty's real name? It's just like the whole princess thing in Stay Out of the Basement. So anyways, please like this video, comment, tell me what you thought of the book, or tell me, like, if you're interested in this book based on this description. And then please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest Goosebumps book reviews. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.